2. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I am one of your hosts, but today we are coming back to another Meet the Cast month, where we are now focusing on some films that apparently mean something to our good old buddy Jake. So why don't you tell us about the first film that you have in store for us?
Alrighty. We have an unusual pairing of films, I think, but a fun one. This is the 1999 film by Luis Estrada called La Ley de Herodes, or Herod's Law. Per IMDb, Mexico, 1949. The fable of a janitor turned mayor in a little town lost in the Mexican desert who gradually realizes how far his new acquainted power and corruption can get him. So, written and directed by Luis Estrada, based on a story by him, or co-written, by him with some other fine folks. Estrada apparently has a long history as a firebrand and a thorn in the Mexican government's side. I need to see more of his movies. But anyway, so this is... We'll start with you, Dave. What is your impression of this? Is it your first time seeing this?
This is my first time seeing this film, although parts of it seem vaguely familiar for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe I have seen it passing this the Mexicanos channel. You always pass by the Mexican channel on the when you're surfing the TV, and
sure.
Oftentimes it's like a dramatic thing where the woman is like being cheated on by her husband or something.
Oh, telenovelas.
Yeah. So the Mexican soap, Chris.
Yeah,
but. In any case, this was an interesting story. I mean, rags to riches, basically, but rags to riches to politician, almost is similar to that Madonna musical.
Yeah.
To me, it kind of reminds me of something similar to that because I liked how cheesy the guy was. He was kind of a little sleazy, but
which one?
All of them.
Yes.
All of them were sleazy, including the wife.
Right.
But I liked it. I mean it was rough around the edges. It was it was definitely an original story, I think, where it did seem like it didn't have a big budget. But I did like the cars, the old time cars, and the I mean, this was from 1999, so it's actually like almost like 25 years ago, almost. Hey,
don't remind me.
Don't say old time about 1999.
Well, what's with you old timers there, hey? I like it. I mean, it's the kind that I would have expected to like. I would have gone to like the middle of Milwaukee and walked into one of my Espanol's garage and be like, "Hey, what's that?" But it was good. I mean, I liked the parts where it seemed like he was innocent at first, and it's like it was a gradual turn into madness, But I guess through madness you get popularity. So, but yeah, I think I'm okay with my first viewing of it. And I also just recently bought it with two other Latino
cool
films. So looking forward to checking those out too. Dust to Dust and one other title. So.
Oh, sounds fun. All right. How about you, Forrest? Have you seen this one before, and what's your thoughts on it?
Absolutely not. This is not. Yeah, I actually have never. I don't think I've ever seen anything. I don't think I've ever seen anything Luis Estrada has ever directed. But I was very impressed. With the story. With the act, with the story, with the language. The story, the characters, cinematography. I don't know. I guess when I first started watching it, I kind of got. I don't know. For some reason, it just gave me kind of this Coen Brothers vibe, as far as being, dark. This dark. Like it starts off as like a this dark comedic crime film, and then turns into I don't want to say political thriller, but I don't know if political thriller is the right word, but just seeing his ascent from
a political drama.
Yeah, political drama. Seeing this, take a turn from from sort of a crime comedy to political drama was very interesting. And actually, I was going through the cast list, and I'm surprised to see Alex Cox appear in this movie. He was the Gringo.
Yeah,
and he's done a lot of movies that I've seen, and he's done movies that I've seen, like Repo Man and Sid and Nancy. But yeah, it was really. I think it was really well done. Very good. Interesting look into. I'll admit, I'm ashamed to admit I'm very ignorant of Mexican politics. So this was it was very eye opening in that regard.
Right. I think I agree with your assessment. Like, if the Coen brothers were to make a straight up political satire, that's more what I feel like this is full blown satire. If they were to do a full blown political satire, it probably would feel a bit like this, because it has a lot of their hallmarks. The criminals are stupid element definitely is there. Best laid plans going to waste and all that stuff. But I know
criminals are stupid.
Actually, although considering Estrada and the Coens kind of started their careers around the same time, I'm kind of wondering if either one had influence on the other.
It's entirely possible, I would imagine. There's also the Coens also started hand in hand with Sam Raimi, and there's a little bit of Sam Raimi feel to it as well, with the kind of the low budget, like you said, the low budget kind of, or Dave might have said that. That's pretty fun. And one familiar face in the cast, the guy that plays Lopez, Pedro Armendariz Jr., I recognized him in a heartbeat, but I wasn't sure from what. He had a role in one of those films by a scrappy, low-budget director, Robert Rodriguez, Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he's also in The Mexican.
He's also in The Mask of Zorro as Don Pedro.
Right. And that's true, yeah.
And President Hector Lopez in License to Kill.
Right. So he's done a few fun things. So anyway, Brandon, how about you? I know you've heard this one, at least had heard of it. Was this your first time viewing, your thoughts on it?
This was my first time viewing. As the great Icelandic, I believe it was Icelandic, historian, was it Thorfinn Karlsefni had said, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Indeed.
And that was a phrase that my history teacher had, and a person, because he also named his test where you had to memorize every country and their capital and then go to a blank map at the end of the year and label them all and spell them correctly. So I remembered those phrases very well. And and that phrase I think speaks the best with this movie. When seeing it, I thought about this. This kept reminding me. This fighting satire reminded me of something, and I remembered it just the other day with our pickups, where I saw, not pickups in our vlogcast, where
Right.
I picked up a film that has Woody Allen in it called Picking Up the Pieces, which is, if you haven't seen it and you're okay with a slightly dark commentary on society, similar to this, with that biting humor, that one also, it had such a lot of good similarities to it. Not quite the political edge, but definitely the edge of corruption. So I thought it was a very amusing film. I was braced for something. I don't know what I was braced for, but I was like, well, he's chosen it's a foreign film. It could be something very dry. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and say straight up, I really wanted to do a political satire for this Meet the Cast month. And of all the ones I could have chosen, this probably was one of the least dry ones. That I was thinking Bob Roberts, which is a much drier film, I think. And but some of the others might have been more like this
Scarier.
This was, well, I mean, this one's pretty scary too in a lot of ways, but especially that ending. But it's this is one that actually I was introduced to it by happenstance. I found a copy, even though 99 was kind of the year that I really, really, really got into movies. Like that was kind of it had been building for a couple of years, but 99 is when I went to college and I met some hardcore movie nerds and I got introduced to the Coens and Kevin Smith and all those people. And, but this film flew under my radar. I hadn't even heard of it until a year or two, I think, after graduation. They did have a copy at the college library. And I saw it and I'm like, well, this looks promising. And I think I was on one of my foreign film kicks where I was trying to see, and I saw it and I watched it and I was like, I just loved it instantly. I was like, I don't think I knew what to expect. But I was blown away by the fact that it was a pitch black satire, but it was also, for much of the film, it is pretty hilarious. And actually, my all-time favorite satire is Joseph Heller's Catch-22. And years ago, I came across a quote attributed to Heller that I have not been able to relocate. And I've been looking, and I can't find it. And I'm hoping that, I mean, at this point, it's a paraphrase rather than a quote because, you know, it's been years. But he said that with Catch-22, he wanted people to laugh out loud at the absurdity of war and then look back at horror at what they were just laughing at. And I kind of feel that this movie had a similar vibe regarding politics. Like, you know, they start off with that the scene where Lopez and the other guy are sitting there. The original mayor has been murdered, and he's sitting there going, well, they're trying to find a new guy, and they bring up this guy who ends up getting the job. He's a good man. He'll probably accept. What do you mean a good man? I mean, he's stupid. And I think that really just kind of summed up the vibe of what these politicians expected of each other. They wanted loyalty and intelligence, and ideas were
someone they could control.
Yeah, exactly. So I found, like I said, I immediately loved it. This has never been an extraordinarily common film in the wild. I think it probably took me a few years to track it down, and I did pick it up when I found it, and I watched it again, and it's been sitting on my shelf since then. So this is probably the third time I've seen it, and it's been, I don't know, it's probably been close to 10 years since I've seen it. But I definitely, I think it's a good, solid film. It is rough around the edges. It does have the subtlety of a sledgehammer at times, but it is a fun movie at first, and again does become almost horrifying toward the end. And I'm just very impressed by it. I think the guy that plays the main guy, Juan Vargas, he's played by Damian Alcazar. I just think he just did a great job with this character, and generally, it was good. But so I guess we'll get into back up a little bit and give a little bit more of the basic setup. We touched on it a bit, but basically, you have this backwater town, like way out. I mean, this is like out past the boonies. I think it's San Pedro de los Ojos, out in the middle of the Sonora Desert, basically. And the corrupt mayor is lynched and beheaded by the villagers. And then, like I said, you get the PRI bigwigs, local bigwigs who want to be national bigwigs. You've got the Lopez and his what's the word I'm looking for? His other person
running for the mayor or the governorship.
Yes, basically you got this guy believes that the upcoming election will make his superior the president. So he wants to become the governor, I think. And then this other guy's angling for his position. And meanwhile, they want to put a lid on this problem of this little town. So they pick this guy who's supposed to be a moron, who's supposed to be a loyal party hack, basically, to just keep things under control for a while. They figure he's too stupid to become corrupt, basically. How little they know. And so Vargas and his wife accept the position. Basically, he's running. They call him a janitor on IMDb, but it's really more like he runs like a
junkyard.
Junkyard, yeah, exactly. He's basically just a low level groundskeeper for the state. He's like, this is a great advancement, and whatever. And then they go, how far are we from the town? Oh, you are here, senor.
What's interesting is in this very beginning, scenario where they say, hey, well, we've got this guy, and he's an honest fool, fool or good man or whatnot.
Right.
Apparently, no matter how low or high you are, it puts you, if you're in any kind of a job whatsoever in this country, it seems like you are in some kind of political party, whether you're on one side or the other,
Well, yeah, not necessarily, but I mean, this guy does work for the government. I mean, he is working a government job. And one notable thing about this film, PRI is the name of the long ruling party. I think they were originally. Yes. They ran Mexico for a long time. This is the first film that called them out by name and got away with it. And the film almost didn't get released, but the government was afraid of being called out for censorship, so they let it come out reluctantly. But this is the first film that was able to call them out by name, which is kind of fun. It's kind of a nice little tidbit there. But because it is pretty critical of the PRI party, but not only the PRI party. Their main opposition is the PAN, which is represented by the doctor, and we'll get to him in a little bit. But so basically, Vargas and his wife Rosa end up in this little backwater town, and they meet Pac, who is basically native blood but speaks Spanish well, and is his secretary. And they come to find out that the entire community consists of a few decrepit buildings, the secretary, the doctor and his wife,
and the
whorehouse, and the three girls that work there, the minister, the preacher, and a whole bunch of Indians and or natives, I should say, and most of them don't speak Spanish, and of course Vargas doesn't know any of the native languages, so he absolutely relies on Peck to do all the communication for him. He also barely has a dime to his name and finds out very, very quickly a few things about the town. One, that the preacher is definitely not an innocent. That the whorehouse basically is a major part of the community, and that the doctor is dead set against them and the PRI party. And he finds out of all these things at once and gets frustrated and goes to his superior to ask for money to actually do some things to do some good around the community.
Well,
what's up? What's up?
They had 3 pesos.
Oh yeah, there you go. and Doña, what's her name? Doña, Lupe, right? I believe it was. She tries right out of the gate to bribe him. She's like, "Well, how much or whatever?" And he's like, "No, I'm not that kind of a person, like." And he goes to the Capitol. Well, first of all, I believe the preacher advises him to take the bribe. He said, in contrast to the doctor who says, well, they just are spreading filth and corruption and disease all around town. The preacher is like, well, they perform a valuable community service. And then so he, frustrated, goes to the not the Capitol, but to his superior, and asks for money, and is instead given a large tome containing the laws of Mexico and a revolver. Mm-hmm. And he is told point blank by Lopez, his superior, that he needs to consider Herod's Law, which apparently his interpretation of it apparently is o te chingas o te jodes, which I believe literally translates either you get screwed or you get fucked. I think they translate it slightly different in the subtitles, but you get the idea. Like, you screw them or they screw you, basically. And that is how he is told to govern this town. And like I said, he's given this huge book of laws. He's like, learn that, memorize that. You can use that to do anything you need to do. And anything you can't do with a word, here's your gun. And it's kind of like, at first it kind of horrifies Vargas, but then he's kind of he's kind of excited to give it a try. So he does. He goes and gives it a try, and he ends up basically shaking down Doña Lupe for a lot more than she had intended. And then that just kind of starts the ball rolling. And I think at this point, let's look a little bit at characters. What do y'all think about Vargas as a character?
He's kind of a dumbass at first. He's controlled by his wife. Like she's got him wrapped around his little finger because he'll just say yes to everything to her. And you know, he's slapped with this with this place, which I think it's like the place that they send the people that they don't like, in particular, or just are, you know, well, I don't want to get too far into spoilers, but it's kind of a circle,
spoiler
kind of a thing.
Right.
But Vargas to me is an innocent thrown in a city of lawlessness, told to be to have the upper hand, since he is the law, laid down the law, you know, and he takes it into his own hands and almost like becomes his own governor in this city. So, but that's how I think of Vargas.
All right. How about Brandon? It seemed like you were trying to say something there.
I mean, to me, I feel like there is an innocence about him at the time, but I think that innocence is mistaken. I don't think it's innocence as much as naivety.
Yes.
But it looks like innocence on the surface. As a matter of fact, one can say innocence and naivety do look very similar at the beginning, but once the wisdom comes about, then you really can tell the difference. In this case, naivety is far more likely.
Right. What do you think, Forrest?
Of Vargas?
Yeah.
I definitely have to agree. Starts, you know, how he starts off like very naive and like pretty much in you know, guys, you know, people have their fingers have him wrapped around their fingers. It's like basically, I'm like, I guess I don't know if the word's idiot savant, but
he's basically like a little puppy.
Exactly.
He's like that old cartoon dog that would be like, hey master.
Yes, I know.
Can I bring your shoes? Can I bring your shoes? Yes.
Hello?
Okay. Let me bring your shoes. You know?
A little mustachioed puppy.
Yep.
I agree with Brandon's point. I think he is definitely more naive than innocent. Like you see flashes of that. Like he may be wrapped around his wife's finger, but he doesn't really disagree with her. She is clearly very ambitious, and he clearly doesn't see any problem with that at all. He's ambitious in the sort of way of someone who doesn't know how to succeed, sort of thing. And whenever he's given a pointer on how he can, quote, succeed, he takes it to heart. He learned his lessons a little too well, I think. He actually graduates very quickly from bribes and to straight up murder and other things. And that's like
he's kind of forced into the situation in a sense.
I don't know.
In a sense, because he had money when he first came, and then he found out how much the treasury was,
Yeah.
And how much money he needed to like
Right.
carry out his ideas that he had originally.
It could have turned out differently.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to point out about the wife, just to make sure that this is covered, the wife came across as a Lady Macbeth.
A little bit.
In a lot of ways. But I feel like it was a Lady Macbeth that got the tables turned upon her before her influence caused more damage. She ended up getting damaged by her own actions.
Hoisted by her own petard. Well, yeah, her dalliance with the gringo ended up kind of... Yeah. Now, speaking of the gringo, I believe he was met on the way back from Lopez, I think. Or on the way to or from?
On the way to.
On the way to.
Because his car breaks down.
Yes, Vargas's car breaks down. And here's an issue again of his naivete. This random gringo drops by and is like, "Hey, do you need any help?" And then he's like, "Oh, my car it doesn't start." And he's like, he charges this exorbitant fee to fix the car, and then replaces a wire. And he's like, "Oh, you're good to go." But of course, Vargas tries to turn the tables. He gives him a fake name and heads off to some, But then, what do you know?
Well,
but the gringo shows up on his doorstep wanting that money.
No, but here's the thing. He tells the gringo. I love this line. He's like, how about this? I am on my way to the governor's thing. You see, I am the law. So I will meet you where I'm going, and then I'll give you that $100. Because guess what? Mexicans always are good on their word, senor.
Oh yeah, yeah. I did like that added little line of yes, they're always good on their word.
Okay,
and they're always on time.
What's up, Brandon?
Actually, you would be the best one to say about this because of your familiarity with the Coen's work. Okay, out of all the characters, the one that felt like it jumped the most out of a Coen Brothers film was the American in that one to me.
Oh, I could believe that.
Himself, the way he talked, how he acted, he felt like he was a Coen Brothers character.
Oh yeah, I believe that. Yes, I think he does. Honestly, the scenes with Lopez reminded me of a Coen film too. He had kind of that sort of bearing too. But you're right. Definitely, the gringo felt like like he could have been a character from Oh Brother or from No Country for Old Men or something like that. He. I do agree there. And of course, that was the Alex Cox character that you had referenced before for us. Incidentally, the wife is Delia Casanova, which is actually kind of an interesting name for her, considering that Vargas apparently sees himself as a Casanova. Part of the reason why things ended up getting out of hand at the brothel is because he not only was shaking her down for tons of money, but was demanding free time with the girls. And
but I think we should relay that he had tried the law first.
He did
with her because he first came to her the first time. She tried to bribe him, and you mentioned that, but he basically turned her down, and she kicked him out. The next time he came around, he tried it again, and she still refused. I mean, he tried it several times, and then it was when he came back with the gun.
I remember.
He had the book too, and he was like going down reading all the different things she was guilty of a lot of infractions.
He accidentally shot her in the leg.
Yes,
and then she came in the next day, and or something like that, and they apologize. Well, he apologized up and down, and it reminded me of a dog again. And basically, she offered him more money than she had actually offered him before, and then he just continued to collect.
Right.
So,
yeah. And meanwhile, he when the gringo shows up to collect, he fast talks him again and convinces him to stay on as a quote unquote engineer. He decides to, like, he genuinely, I think at this point still genuinely wants to help the town, but at this point he's already seeing the dollar signs. He's already letting greed get him carried away. He promises to bring electricity to the town. And so he brings in this quote engineer from America to help with bringing in, and they put up one pole, and that's pretty much it. They made no effort during the course of the film to wire the town up, and he does this, I believe he makes that promise at the dinner, right, where they bring all the local. Yeah. Yes, because the wife sees all the money and says, we need to have a dinner for all the important people in town.
Because we have the money to do it now.
Exactly, yes. And there you actually do get some pretty interesting, earnest political discussion where the doctor kind of lays it all out, the issues he has with the party and all that kind of stuff. And it's largely to shut him up that they end up making the promise about the electricity and all that kind of stuff. And then, you basically get this thing where Vargas is becoming more and more corrupt. The doctor's trying harder and harder to put a stop to it. The various other characters fade in and out. And again, yes, Lupe. What do y'all think of Doña Lupe as a character? Other than the wild, crazy hair that's on display in Dave's picture there.
I think she's a regular bitch, but I mean, she is a madam. I mean, she has an upper hand in how she treats her ladies, and she doesn't allow them to leave. She runs a legitimate business, and
quote unquote.
If one of them leaves, then it's less work. It's more work for her. So that's the thing when dude shows up at her establishment. There's a girl that's running away or trying to, and she basically drags her back, kicks her back into the house, and that's when he makes his move. So
I think that she is. It's interesting because when she comes back with the bullet in the leg, she even makes a statement that she's gained a little bit more respect for him for holding out as much as he does, because and felt more comfortable with being able to I can deal with you, but she was I really think she was a character that if he had not overstepped his bounds and had kept it right, she could have actually been more of an ally to him than the adversary that she became.
Right. But he got greedy. I mean, He
did seem to get greedy because it seemed like he just took money from the customers too. Yeah. So not only was he getting money from her, he was taking whatever money that customers had on them as they were going out the door.
Well, like that one guy, he accosted that one guy saying, "Okay, so you have no money for taxes, but you have money to be here. Pay your taxes now," and it's kind of like, you know, and of course they were probably bullshit taxes to begin with, but still, that was, yeah, he was not only getting free lays, he was, yeah, taking the customer's money. So basically, he was ruining her business on multiple levels, and still demanding that she pay him a lot of money. And so it's like, so she ends up buying a bodyguard, or hiring a bodyguard to intimidate him, which does work briefly.
Which I wonder, with however much money that she was actually giving him at the time, how was she able to hire that bodyguard? You know,
I would say with a character like this, she probably had a stash somewhere. I'd be surprised if she didn't. She probably had a nest egg. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really say the whole part after the bodyguard, when he deals with that, I think the movie is mostly lighthearted up until that point, but I really think that was the point of no return, where the movie just went entirely dark.
Yeah. Well, it seems to lean hard into that idea that once you kill a person, it changes you for the worse. I think this movie definitely seems to lean into that idea that, like, up until then, he could have turned back. Yeah.
Yeah. There was no going back from where he was there, but
right.
Darned if he could have been that person selling the rest of the walls to the school.
Exactly. Yeah. The weird kind of an odd postscript. We seem to be hitting a few of these. Isela Vega, who plays Lupe, actually apparently passed away just a little over 2 months ago. She was 81. Good solid life there. Oh wow, I've lost my page. How did I do that? But okay, so also we've mentioned a few times the Doctor, and we'll come back to him for a moment. I wanted to go ahead and ask what y'all's thoughts were on the priest. The
Padre.
The Padre, indeed.
The Padre reminded me of another movie that I've seen, Lilies of the Field, where...
Oh. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, where you have an innocent enough priest, but he's willing to drink or have relationships with his parishioners or things of that nature, or accept more money for his own fantasies, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I would call him innocent, but
no, no, and I don't think everything that's coming into the offering plate is going to God.
Oh no! Well, no. I mean, you see that thing where the doctor's wife comes in for a confession, and like he basically is like 1 peso per blessing. Basically, he's like naming off all these blessings and expecting her, like he's bilking her for money. And from the moment Vargas arrives, he is lusting after Vargas's car, and he keeps making pointed remarks about how he would like a car like that. And it's like, yeah, he was an interesting Padre. He reminded me a little bit, just a bit. And again, the Coen Brothers comparison, now that you guys have it in my head, he reminded me in some ways of John Goodman. And it's just like, or Brandon, you might remember better than I do. You mentioned Picking Up the Pieces. No, David Schwimmer was the priest in that one. I was thinking
the priest in that one wasn't really. He was kind of corrupted,
what was the role Cheech Marin had in that one?
Oh gosh.
But like Cheech Marin, Cheech Marin in Well, or like Machete, where he plays
Machete.
Machete played the priest. Yeah.
So like maybe think about like kind of like a blend of like the priest from Machete with the Coen Brothers John Goodman character, and that's kind of where I feel like this guy lands. He's he is I thought he was interesting. I loved the part where he was telling Vargas that the brothel was a social that it did the town a service.
There was this is an older film, but I'm thinking of, because you had Friar Tuck and of course Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, but you also had the evil priest that was there, and he was taking all the money as he was fleeing. As he was there, it's kind of a combination of the two in a way.
Right.
All the greed of that one, but all of the prim and proper, all the weird likeness of the other one, the more overt. That was a lot of corruption. That was a lot of corruption on that one.
Actually, okay, you reminded me again of like you talking about like Robin Hood. And I'm thinking, of course, again of the line we thought about last night with like the, let's say, for example, if they were to rename this town Latrine, used to be Shithouse.
And we have a movie coming out this week called Shithouse. So hey,
exactly. But anyway. So the priest also becomes important because he eventually lets Vargas know the chink in the doctor's armor. It turns out that the local native girl that worked for the doctor, Chencha, did other things for him as well. And with that knowledge, basically... and also by framing the town drunk as the one who killed off the brothel matron, Vargas is able to essentially create the impression that briefly that the doctor is the actual villain. However, that is where absolute power corrupting absolutely comes into play. Because without his major thorns in his side, and of course he's caught the wife with the gringo and run her off. So basically anyone who could oppose him, except theoretically the priest, who is perfectly content to allow him to do what he will as long as he gets him that car that he promised. He is free to do what he will, and
he didn't just
he goes
run her
mad
off
with power.
He doesn't just run his wife off though. He chains her up for a little bit.
I was gonna say,
well, that's
against
true.
her will.
That's true. He does. That's right. He tortures her, and then she gets out and gets away. Yeah, but I probably had blocked that part, I guess, because I'm not crazy about those kind of scenes, but. It really did show that he was kind of cracking under the pressure, but he gets to the point where he is just insane. And he gets to the point where Peck tells him to his face, basically, you've gone mad with power. You need to stop this. And then gamely walks into a jail cell when he's told that his services are no longer needed, basically. And meanwhile, in the capital, Lopez has lost the election and orchestrated an assassination attempt against his opponent, which doesn't work. So he comes running out to this backwater, hoping to essentially rob Vargas, shake him down.
Because he's heard that he has
heard
of some fortune.
Yes, indeed. And it does not go so well for Lopez and the guy that he brings with him. And then we cut to a couple of interesting scenes in quick succession. You see Vargas climbed up the utility pole with all the villagers ready to string him up. And then the cops show up, and you think, oh, well, he's going to jail for life, you know. But then you find out, no. He apparently gets turned into a national hero for offing the guy that tried to assassinate the new governor.
Well, I think it's all due to the fact that the mob had like thrown some Molotovs into his establishment of mayorship, the town hall, where he had his office, and because they were lynching the place at the time the cops showed up. I feel like he used their anger to
well, maybe, but I think it was more the fact that he offed Lopez. That was probably what. And then, of course, the last time you see Vargas, he is delivering a speech in front of the Mexican Congress. And meanwhile, you see a new appointee of the party show up in San Pedro de los Ojos. He meets Peck. He and the wife asks the exact same question. It's almost shot for shot the same as the introduction in the first place. And it just shows that the cycle will go on and on and on and on.
Though he did end up different than his predecessor.
He did have a different fate than his predecessor, yes. Now, who knows if his successor will, but...
There were two quotes that I can't remember 100% that I kept thinking of with this movie. The first one was a Simpsons quote. What was it? Of course, I'm going mad with power. If you ever tried going mad without power.
Yes, I love that. Of course, I've gone mad. Of course, I've gone mad with power. Have you ever tried going mad without power? It's boring. No one listens to you.
And the other one was the quote at the end of Picking Up the Pieces. And again, I can't remember it too well. I need to watch that again. I need to put that up for this show. Which is like what was it? If you God said basically, if you can't take a joke, go fuck yourself.
Basically, yeah.
Those lines. It still sticks with me to this day. I just thought it was an excellent way to end it. And that would have been an excellent line to end that with too, because I did consider that.
Right. And you're right. I think this time around, I don't know if I had before, but I think this time around, I was thinking a little bit of Picking Up the Pieces. I think that one, there are some similarities there. So that really, I mean, I probably missed a couple beats, and if you guys know a specific one you want to mention, but really, there is not a whole heck of a lot of plot here. It's actually pretty straightforward. It is kind of a fable in a lot of ways. Because,
we forgot to mention the foursome that he had.
Oh yes, that one glorious montage.
That was a big one, I think. The montage.
Yes, exactly. You got to have a montage, and this is probably one of the more memorable ones.
Yeah, I'm not going to forget this.
The other thing we kind of glazed over was the murder of Donna Luque.
Right.
Where he comes at them like in the middle of the night while they're walking, and he basically pulls out his gun and shoots him, and she backs away and gets like really scared, you know, because it stunned her, and unfortunately. It had come to the point where he had could not stop himself, and he had to shoot her at that moment because things had been back and forth between the two. I think, and she was just rebellious to his authority, and I think that was kind of the thing. You know, she was not listening to him. She was not respecting him. And
I think though. I mean, you could see the corruption there.
Yeah.
I mean, when they had to close up the store with the racist
respect my authority.
When they had to close the racist guy's store, essentially, because again, taxes were just too high and the fees were too high for them to function. He was creating it so that nobody could deal with it, and it was eventually going to happen to where he could not. Well, there was not going to be any other way at the end other than lynching this dude. So yeah, I mean, look at the beginning. The beginning is the best thing. I mean, look at all the money that guy had hidden away in those portraits and in the book and all that. And he had it all sit there. And they even went over it like, hey, what happened to the school? Well, we had it, but he sold the doors, he sold the windows.
Right.
And
Yep.
all of that was just precursors. It led, I mean, like I say, it was very good at foreshadowing what was going to happen.
I did like the part where the gringo was teaching the wife English. You know, no, and she was like, my husband, and then he was like, your husband is an asshole. My husband is an asshole.
No, I think she said something else. Like he had taught her something, and she's like something like, "My husband is something," and then he corrected. He's like, "No, your husband is an asshole." Like,
asshole, yeah.
Asshole, yes, yes, I like that. And in a sense, she, you know, she wasn't like just this horrible like. You know, I mean, he was going to the whorehouse constantly with these girls, and it's like, well, how's he really going to hold it against her for wanting to, you know? But of course he does, because he's become an asshole. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Is there anything else on plot or character that anyone wants to hit that we haven't really talked about? They haven't really talked about the doctor's wife, but there's not really much to say other than she was a bit of a hoe.
I liked that part for some reason. When he was supposed to talk to the doctor and try to get his apology, but he had already gone to the governor. And it was only his wife, and she was a big woman. So, and he was a tiny dude. So when she was coming towards him, I was like, he's going to get flattened.
He was screwing all the women. It didn't matter.
Well,
and then of course, when he tells the doctor and his wife to get out by dawn, she's like trying to pull her little fucking ass puppy along behind her.
Right.
I did like how when after he had that threesome, and he's sitting in the bath,
foursome.
And then
it was a foursome.
But then his wife comes in there in the bath, and he's like, because he had already been like going all this time, and he's like, okay,
yeah, if you insist. Yeah. So, I guess then we'll go ahead and talk about. We kind of touched a little bit before, but what are y'all's overall thoughts regarding like the production on this one, the overall cinematography, sets, all that fun stuff?
Well, a lot of that stonery and whatnot. I believe that it was already there. So I think that wherever they filmed in was actually kind of a natural city that was already there. They just probably paid the residents to get the fuck out for a couple of days.
Could be, or to be extras, possibly. Who knows? But yeah, I would say whether or not it was natural locations, the scouting was well done, because it really did give that vibe of being a completely podunk town. No question about
out
that.
in the middle of nowhere.
Uh-huh.
Not really near any type of a flea market or anything.
Apparently, mostly it was filmed in the state of Puebla, Mexico, and parts of it were filmed in Mexico City. So that makes sense. I'm sure most of the scenes with Lopez and whatever were probably filmed in the city. And I do think the contrast of those scenes was quite effective too. Like the pomp, if you will, of the government offices, and then the versus everything else. It was kind of and the camera work. They used a lot of another connection, I think, to Oh Brother is that it's a fairly desaturated look. They used a lot of sepia, a lot of they muted a lot of the color in this, and especially in the countryside scenes. And I don't know, I thought that worked nicely for the visuals. Do y'all have any thoughts on that? Or
Well, oh, go ahead, Brandon.
No, you go ahead. I didn't have much to say on it.
okay.
As far as anything goes, I did like the fact that it was kind of a mystery of bodies piling up somewhat. I mean, you start with a dead body, and he comes in to a dead body, and the doctor's already on his neck about that shit, and it's like he's sucked into the whole thing,
That's one thing we kind of overlooked was the whole thing about the dead body at the beginning, and he's traveling around trying to. What can I do with this?
Well, yeah.
I like how the dead bodies. Whenever somebody's dead, it just appears on his desk. Just more paperwork that you need to handle later on.
Right. It just appears on his desk because nobody else wants to do anything about it.
Exactly.
And he takes the dead body to the priest, and the priest is like, "I'll just do the blessing, but I'll take money for it."
Exactly.
And then he goes and buries it himself. I mean, at first, when I thought he was going to bring a gift to the mayor, I thought it was going to be the cadaver. But when it was the pig, I was like, "Oh, okay, cute."
Oh yeah. He's advised to show. Was it like a good faith gesture or whatever?
But I also like how what's her name ends up taking and having him act like a pig.
Oh my god, that scene was nuts. Big pen.
Yeah.
Right. That's good times.
Parts of it were funny, but a lot of it was serious.
Well, yeah. Wait. I lost my page again. What?
I was just saying it's a good mix of humor and seriousness, and I do think having it take that turn after killing to being a vast majority humorous with some serious parts to vast majority serious with some humorous parts. I feel like it was going in that, like the percentages were more of one, less of the other, and then it just switched the tables to where it was more of the other, less of the one.
Right. And then the all right. I'm just having a look here. Apparently this thing won a whole lot of awards at the Mexican Ariel Awards, which is kind of cool. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. And then one last thing I quite enjoyed about this was the music by Santiago Ojeda. Y'all had it's sort of a weird, sort of jaunty thing, but it was serious when it needed to be, and I enjoyed it. As I've said before many times, I am a big believer of proper use of music in the movie, and I think this one did a fine job with that. But it wasn't something that struck me as heavily as your typical Coen film would. But yeah.
Oh, another thing we sort of glazed over is the young lady who supposedly the doctor had raped.
Right.
She ended up becoming part of the harem due to our dude saying, well, I know where we can stick her.
Well, theoretically, I think they did probably end up taking her into their number, but he made no bones about what he was hoping would happen, but I don't think they quite were thinking along those same lines.
No,
not quite. Well, anywho, I guess we've probably pretty well covered it, I guess. This one, like I said, it's a pretty straightforward movie. There's a lot to be said there. One thing I will say, this film is very much a product of its environment. It is very much a rebuke of the ruling government at the time. And the fact that it takes place in the 40s is no accident. It's kind of like saying, hey, this has been going on for decades and decades and decades. But I want to run this by you guys. I'm wondering y'all's thoughts, but I have never seen this as a film that cannot be appreciated unless you're Mexican. I feel like this has very universal themes when it comes to power and corruption, and
I agree.
And all the more relevant today here in the States than it probably ever was. Sadly.
Well, interestingly, about a year after this movie came out, a year after this movie came out, the PRI lost power, lost the presidential election.
Right.
Goes to show you that any political person in power can probably send any faction of people to a podunk town to try to make money. To try to help them get to the polls.
It's not. Well, it's never been. There's never not been. I mean, the scholar I was talking about when it comes to like power corrupts absolute, power corrupts absolutely. That's hundreds of years ago that was
right.
And this is not a new thing by any means.
Right.
It's a tale as old as time. It was made. The players are different because it's those fit the time, but in reality, the play itself could be anybody at any time. That could be played in the Roman times. It could be played in medieval times, current times. There is no time where power hasn't corrupted. Not to my knowledge, anyway.
Right. And especially, again, like the whole idea of we'll put him in there because he's an idiot and he'll do what he's told. Well, yeah, how often does that actually work? And actually that's that's another connection as well with with Catch-22, with some of those characters that were given, like they were considered to be pawns, usable this way or that. That one also, luckily for all involved, Vargas is nowhere near as intelligent as Malamanda Binder, or that was corruption on a whole different level. But But definitely, this, yeah, I really did enjoy this. Is a depiction of corruption, but it is also kind of scary. And like I said, I thought it would be really fun to, because we have not hit all that many politically themed films yet. And I know that that can be a dicey topic with some people, but it is a big part of cinema, and there are a bunch of them I want to cover. I want Bob Roberts, Wag the Dog, The Great Dictator. There's a bunch of my Silver Cities on my list, and hopefully, I thought this would be a fun sort of like teaser, if you will. Oh, and I guess, I never really, I'm sure, Brandon, you've probably been wondering why I never really did this. I haven't really done my, quote, personal interest in this film, have I?
No.
Okay, well, I think we've largely touched on it. When I discovered this film, I was really into politics, and I have gotten back into it. And I have long believed film to be an excellent medium for trying to affect change. So for me, there is definitely a connection there. My fascination with the rest of the world, and I specifically did choose 2 foreign films tonight, and that, and also, when Brandon first set the parameters he was hoping we would follow, he changed the parameters over time. And originally, you said you wanted some really deep cuts, basically. I'm using different words, but that's basically the impression I got. You wanted some deep cuts. And I think with this one, I kind of succeeded, because I don't think it sounded like Dave and Forrest had never heard of it beforehand.
Nope.
And like I said, Brandon probably heard about it because I've talked about it. But
I think I may have actually seen this on like Blockbuster's shelf at one point in time, but because I wasn't, I guess I wasn't into like the main films. I mean, I'm into a lot more films than I used to be. So. To me, I'm glad that I am open-minded, and I did check this film out because I did like it.
That's the thing, though. I think that corruption, I don't really think that any of the non-politicians, corruption, all the politicians, no matter what side they are on, seem to go for the corruption, and almost every voter would prefer their candidate not be corrupt. Now, many work hard to see their candidate as perfectly honest and uncorrupted. That could be a naivety, just because, they're on my party, therefore they're always honest, they always tell the truth, and they're incapable of flaws. Now, those people I really am sad for, because I don't even see that, and I don't see that in any of the candidates that I would vote for.
And actually, Vargas starts off like that. He is a loyal party man at first.
But and that's why many people tend to. I mean, that was one of the arguments people put forward towards term limits and so on, saying that power corrupts and stays in power, continued to corrupt. Now, whether again, that's debate for another day. But I always think that's interesting.
I do think that when it came down to him against Lopez, that was a hard decision for him to make, even as insanely powerfully obsessed he had become. Now this dude is trying to take everything from him again, and everything that he has learned by using by having a gun. Shit like that. It makes him more wild, And to me, when he had to shoot him, I mean that was tough on him. I think, because this was a man that he had believed in party wise. and he was taking him for all he was worth, and realizing that he was just that, a patsy.
Yeah.
So, but there is one thing I wanted to touch on with the Gringo that I think we kind of skated over, is before that dinner party. He had actually made a bargain with him on going 50-50 on everything that he made money on in the town, and it was shortly after that he had the dinner party and told them about their mysterious engineer. So, because he still hadn't quite paid him that $100.
No, not quite.
But I think he basically got his $100 worth out of his wife. So,
and we should also mention that the preacher did eventually get his car.
Yes, he did. Well, and we got to see that at the end of the day, society tends to reward corruption.
Yes. Well, like I said, the cycle never ends. Yeah.
It does not.
It's a circle of. But yeah, and also, I guess as far as personal connection, y'all are right. There is a little bit of a Coen vibe here too, and that probably was also something that appealed to me. And I've always loved a good satire. I like that idea quite a bit. But anywho, I guess we are probably we didn't do favorites. Let's do favorites. How about you, Brandon? Why don't you start?
I have a couple there. There's like a whole bunch, but I did enjoy that part where they're talking about the schoolhouse, and he's just like, so what happens? Like, this is schoolhouse. Well, first he sold the windows and the doors. He would have sold the walls, but nobody was buying.
Right.
And I don't know. It just it laid the foundation. Like, yeah, everybody that's been like in here has been as corrupt as that first guy. So it ties with that very first scene, because that very first scene tells you everything you need to know from then on out.
All right. What are you, Forrest?
I say the scene where he gets thrown into the pig pen. That's pretty on point.
Okay. Dave?
Honestly, I love any scenes with the madam, because I like the back and forth of them two. I mean, it's like, she tries to bribe him, and then he gets the upper hand, and then she gets the upper hand, and I think ultimately the murder that happens because of it, that was kind of it was expected, but in a way it was kind of a shock too, because he did ultimately like turn around and shoot her too,
Right.
And she was pleading for her life, so I think in that moment she actually felt pure terror, and of course the montage.
You gotta talk about the montage. You need a montage.
You need a montage and then some.
For kids.
I also didn't mind the little scene where his wife kind of comes into the tub with him. I always love good, a good tub scene where you get to see the woman's ass for a little bit. I don't know.
Right. All right.
Nothing wrong with a good ass shot.
I gotta admit, the montage scene has to be mentioned. It probably wasn't my favorite, but it was fun. And there's a few little moments throughout the film that are my worth mentioning. That description at the very beginning of he's a good man, he's stupid. That just stuck with me. I love that. And I love the part where the gringo is teaching the wife English and he corrected her, your husband's an asshole, But that reminded me so much of, I had a Slovak friend who one day a couple of people who spoke Russian were teaching him Russian, and they spent a whole afternoon on it, and he learned like a whole page full of stuff. And it was all curses. It was all curse words. It was all. It just reminded me of that, like that little moment. But it was kind of amusing. And I love the scene at the end. This is weird, and I can't predict what kind of twist endings I will like. I cannot predict what kind of messed up endings I will like. But there are movies where I love it because the ending is messed up. And this one, where you see the shot of him at the Congress after everything that's gone down, I just love that. I'm just like, damn that little asshole. He doesn't deserve that. but then my favorite character, though, was the priest. And I think a lot of my favorite moments were just where he was grifting people. Like where he was giving the blessings and asking for a peso for each one and all that, Or when he blessed the body but then refused to bury it, Yeah.
That's up to your government to take care of it.
Exactly. Well, he says, he's like, that's your job. It's like... Yeah, and that was so there were a lot of little moments definitely that I enjoyed. Anywho, if we are ready, I guess we can call it. Anyone have any final thoughts?
Not that I know of.
All right, and I guess as per usual, we're saving outros for the second round.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless someone's leaving.
So. Forrest, you with us for the next one?
I should be.
Cool. All right, so definitely join us on Inside Movies Galore for the next one tonight, Makia When the Promised Flower Blooms. And hand it back to Dave.
Alrighty.
Do your thing.
Like the man said, laying down Herod's Law, there we will see you on the next channel. So stay tuned for more exciting stuff from Jacob's personal picks.
Mm-hmm.
Night all.